Hello and welcome back. Hello and welcome back to episode 210 of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. This is your host, Brian Weigel, welcoming you into a great Monday night to discuss the return of Major League Soccer as well as FC Cincinnati. It's almost like a long-lost friend that, is flying back in from Australia or New Zealand. That's a safe place. So they're coming back in. It's just so close. We're so excited, guys. It's almost here. And to join me talk about this excitement is my main man, Rob Pierce, Editor-in-Chief Rob Pierce. How we doing, Rob?
Oh, I could use a haircut, I think. I got my quarantine haircut still going on here. Claire, my wife, she's cut it a couple different times, and I think I'm due for one. But I'm glad to be here. I know it's been a while. Get to wipe some of the dust off the mic. Been long overdue. So happy to be here and happy to be talking about some MLS tonight.
Well, glad to have you back. And of course, when losing hair like me, I'm not as excited about haircuts as you, but to each his own. Speaking of fresh faces and fresh dudes, Clay Winstead, how you doing, pal?
I don't know if my hair is fresh, but I'm definitely got a fresh attitude, and I'm happy to be here.
Fresh attitude. When you get back into the Apple store, all these people are going to see you, and they're going to see a slob. You can't be that guy. You got to be all fresh and polished for your return to work, man.
I appreciate you blowing up my spot like that. Now people are going to know to come into the Apple store, and yeah, that was not anticipated, but thank you.
I heard he gives great discounts, so you should go in there.
We sell everything at retail price.
Hashtag Cincy Soccer Talk, and we'll see what discounts he gives you. I'm joking, everybody. The long-awaited return of the OG, my buddy in crime, Bill Wolf. How we doing, Bill?
Boy, it's been a while since I've heard that. I'm doing great. It's been a rough 2020. I can't say I have any real desire to repeat this year. I'd like to throw it over my shoulder and start 2021 at this point. But no, I'm good. Health is there. Family is good. That's all the important stuff. So, and soccer's back.
Soccer's back. No, we're going to do. We're going to talk to Jeff Birding. We're going to talk to Jaap Stam, and we're going to say to Team FC Cincinnati, Team 2020, win it for Bill Wolf. He needs this. Win that Orlando tournament. We'll
yeah, or something.
Yeah, we gotta make T-shirts. Win it for Bill Wolf, right?
Just make it out of the group stage. That'd be nice.
Yes. Just be better than Nashville. That's all we care about, honestly.
That's all we need.
No. I think as long as we make it out of the group stage and we win more than one playoff game, right? Not that it's a playoff, but you know what I mean.
I mean, I'll take any
knockout game. There we go.
I'll take any points, honestly, right now. So, it is what it is, guys. We're very happy to be back live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, at Cincy Soccer Talk, all across your favorite social media platforms. We are live tonight. If you want to call in, we have Nick Soup and Sausage, Nicky Soup and Sausage. That's what it is. Oh, you're not losing that name, pal. Nicky Soup and Sausage manning the phone tonight. The King's Hammer hotline. Call in 513-399-KICK. 513-399-KICK. We are very happy and excited to have you all tonight. So, guys, we have a fun show. As we kind of highlight, we're going to discuss the return of Major League Soccer. We're also going to get into Black Lives Matter and the discourse that we have and how Major League Soccer, FC Cincinnati, can be positive forces in our community and heal our souls, I guess we could say. And then we'll also have a bunch of listener questions that we're going to get into. It seems like everybody's kind of waking up out there, so we're going to have a lot of active things to discuss. So, and if you want to weigh in, please call 513-399-KICK, 513-399-KICK on the King's Hammer hotline. So, guys, let's dive down into it. Major League Soccer, we're on our way back. I think we heard it about a week ago, a little bit more than a week ago. Sunday night, May 31st, it sounded like kumbaya. Things were going well. Looks like the players had their ideas. The owners had their agreements, and we all thought we were going to be hunky dory. And then all of a sudden, at the last second, the league got a little greedy. The owners wanted a little bit more control, wanted to, I guess, give a little bit more safety in their pockets, and they decided, hey, no, we might decide to lock our players out for the 2020 season. So there's a bunch of massive pushback. We had a story on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com, actually written by yours truly. So we don't say that enough. That was basically discussing the differences on the two proposals. Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed. We are having a season. There are massive pay cuts taken by the players. There's going to be massive deferrals taken by the players, I think to the tune of a loss of about $100 million worth of salaries over the course of the next 5-6 years that the players are going to incur. But it's a I'd say a group think here, right, Clay? With everything coming together, the owners losing, the players losing some monies, but everybody kind of took their medicine. It looks like we're on the right path back to play in 2020.
Yeah, it looks like that's where we ended up, is that everyone sort of took their share of the burden. I wrote about this, kind of the end product. I didn't get too much in the detail. I'm sure we'll have more reporting on the CBA as we, learn more details. But you're absolutely right. The owners definitely, I think, kind of pushed their luck a little bit on their last proposal. And I understand why. I mean, Garber said it in his sort of his video conference after the CBA was ratified. They're going to be losing about $1 billion in revenue this year. I mean, MLS is more reliant on those game day revenues than pretty much any other major sports league in the United States right now. So, that the force majeure clause to renegotiate if enough teams lose attendance, wanting to push back revenue sharing an entire year instead of cutting it in half. These are definitely the owners definitely wanted to, he said, just ensure safety for their bottom line. But the players held strong, and I'm really proud of them. I think this is the first big kind of CBA negotiation for them where it was really on the line, and they held solid, and they are definitely giving up a lot, but they also knew when to stand their ground. So I'm glad it worked out. I think it's a pretty equitable deal, all things considered, and I'm just glad it means that soccer's coming back.
Absolutely, and what Clay was referencing there, and we'll go to Rob with this, is that you had, I would say, how do I want to say this, with all the different threats going on, and with the kind of the loss of everything there, you had the CBA kind of basically have to renegotiated, and to get all these, to have the players, they don't want to take a 75% pay cut or 50% pay cut like Major League Baseball is doing. They want to, they don't make enough money, so they're deferring that on the back end. And Rob, with the CBAs negotiating, what's your thoughts on that with the players, basically taking their, I guess, pain later on in their deals versus it being up front to kind of get back to play here?
This whole thing was a little weird to me. They had an agreement, basically in place, right? The players had made some concessions, and I'm sure the owners had made some concessions. And then all of a sudden, the league kind of throws in this wrinkle like, hey, can you give a little bit more? If you can't, well, we just might have to lock you out. And I just, that threw me.
Do you think they overplayed their hand a little bit, Major League Soccer, threatening a lockout?
Yeah, and I think the players called their bluff by saying, well, if you're going to lock us out, then maybe we won't show up to these voluntary workouts.
And speaking of that, Rob, it wasn't just, in traditional CBA negotiations with Major League Soccer, it's the worker bees. It's the guys that have been, maybe make $100 grand a year, the MLS lifers that played college soccer, got drafted in the second, third, fourth round, and kind of made a career. Those are the guys that normally negotiate the CBA. This time around, it was different. And I think it's a positive thing when you have guys like Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, Carlos Vela, Chicharito, all being a part of these deals.
For sure. Unity, right? The players were united this time around. I'm sure they were in previous negotiation sessions as well, but you could really tell the unity. It kind of reminded me of back to Labor Day when everybody had those little icons on their Twitter profile instead of their normal picture. So the unity really, you could really tell.
And the one thing they're kind of getting to in Bill, a lot of the players were really frustrated, and I'm interested to see how long this frustration lasts, especially with, I think in the long run in CBA negotiations, the money players are going to start throwing their weight around now versus we'll say the MLSPA reps. But when you're threatening to lock out players during a pandemic, when they could legitimately lose their health benefits, I mean, do you think that? I think it's even more important, Bill, that the players held strong together versus fragmenting. And I think there's a point where, at one point, the high end players could have lost like 50% of their salary, when the lower end players could have lost less. But I thought it was all good that they held together there.
Oh, I think the unity is great. I think it's wonderful to see the players standing strong and players of different levels and incomes, standing up and standing up for each other. I kind of have a different take on a lot of this, though. I mean, I think for me, this is kind of the process. I mean, this is a business. The MLS, sorry, I hate the word. The MLS obviously wants to make as much money as possible. The players want to make as much money as possible. Everyone wants to get the best thing out of it for themselves. I mean, I remember the last CBA negotiation, and I remember it being ugly, and I remember people coming out of it upset. And I think this just fades once people get on the field and start playing again. This is just the process. Mm-hmm. They're going to go through this every 5 to 10 years, and everybody's going to get upset. And the fans in general are going to support the players. And I think that's expected. And good. And I think that as MLS grows and as we bring in more and more higher profile players, those players have the opportunity to stand up for their lower income worker bees, as you refer to them. And, Chicharito and Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore and whoever you want to mention, those guys have a role to play that they didn't. I mean, there weren't as many of those players in the past, so they certainly couldn't get up there. And I think as this league develops, as this league grows, I think the players will have more and more strength. I think they should take advantage of it. I think they should try to get what they can get out of these negotiations. But I think this is the process, and I think people move forward and everybody understands. I don't know that there's going to be long-term hard feeling. I mean, the players know that they need to stand up for themselves. If they ever had some if they were fooling themselves at some point, thinking that the league meant, was out for their best interest, they were fooled, and they woke up and they opened their eyes, because that's not the way this works, right? The league is out for its own best interest, and sure, they'd like their players to be happy, but they're going to look out for themselves first, as the players should look out for themselves first as well.
Yeah, a perfect example of that is what Major League Baseball is going through right now. Yeah, they're basically for every game you play, that's how you get paid. So it's very interesting with the pro rates, and I'm glad Major League Soccer realizes, and I put this in my article, that I think a whole team might make as much as Joey Votto makes. So let's be real, it's not like they're really draining you. I mean, I know there's some owners that don't have the financial wherewithal that the FC Cincinnati ownership group has, but to each his own. But all that being said, if you guys have thoughts, please call in 513-39-KICK on the King's Hammer hotline. But with all that being said, we are on a chart back to playing. And we saw photos today of small group session training down at the Mercy Health Training Center. So that was really exciting to see FC Cincinnati players getting back on the pitch, getting ready to go down to Orlando, which looks like they'll head down there the last week of June. For a short preseason, then hopefully get into games around the 4th of July. We should be hearing more about that coming up. I think Wednesday, the 10th, is the scheduled date for the league, as well as ESPN, Disney, to release the plans for that preseason tournament. So very exciting. A lot of safety, and I know, Clay, we've talked about this quite a bit, is to make sure that we can keep players healthy. And it looks like that is going to be a big part of this, as it should be, even though Florida is is their tests have been going up a little, or their cases has been going up a little bit lately. But from the FC Cincinnati press release, it looks like each player and all staff are going to have to go through those two poly chain reaction tests about 24 hours apart, and then that should actually, I believe, have happened before training, which is basically the and also an antibody test. There's going to be continued testing all the way up every other day, I believe. So it should be a pretty safe return to training. Do you have any thoughts on that and the value, the importance of that going forward for FC Cincinnati to maintain safety for their players and their staff?
Yeah, we all want soccer back. Particularly, I'm sure the owners and the teams want soccer back. The players want to play. The owners want to try to make up as much money as possible. But the only way this is possible anywhere is if you can, to a reasonable extent, guarantee the safety of your players. And that's why the Bundesliga has been back for a while. So the Premier League's coming back soon. You see in their numbers every week, they test over 1,000 people twice a week. They've had less than 1% almost every time of positive cases. Even last week, I think they had one round that went, 0 positives, which is really great to see. And it sounds like MLS is going to be able to do the same thing. It's great that you're testing 3 times before you even go to training. That's great. You're constantly getting tested afterwards. For instance, my favorite team in the Premier League, Tottenham, they haven't said who for medical reasons, but they did have a player test positive. But the next cycle of tests they did on Tottenham, no one came back. So if you can test frequently enough to catch those cases early and isolate them and keep them safe, you prevent spread. And if you can do that, you can play soccer. So that's good. And I think we talked with Nipun about it. That's the key. If MLS isn't taking needed tests from civilians and hospitals, and if the players can feel safe, then it's a go. And that's good to see. I'm really happy with the plan so far.
Yeah, there's actually a player on FC Dallas that tested positive for COVID-19, I think last week. So it's very, very interesting to see how all that works. Now, going down to Florida, Rob, it looks like there's going to be kind of like a World Cup style tournament, 4 groups of 4, 2 groups of 5. That's what the quote unquote groups are looking like, I guess we'll say. All games should be on national TV. Maybe the NBA hijacked the plans down at ESPN on Disney, but it should be pretty exciting. Do you think that it's going to be, I say, a professional product, or do you think this is going to look more like an amateur? And is that good or bad for the appearance of the league, or is it we're back? Let's just be thankful for that.
Something tells me this is going to be along the lines of the Bundesliga, where the first time out, it might kind of look and feel a little bit like preseason training. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they're going to have some rust to kick off, right? But once, you start to get in the rhythm of things again, then I would hope that it's going to be a decent product. And there is excitement to this thing, just to kind of sweeten the deal a little bit. The winner of the tournament gets a CONCACAF Champions League spot, so that's something.
And apparently there might be $1 million worth of prize money involved.
Yeah, that too. That's definitely something to be playing for.
Mm-hmm. Now, Bill, do you think that this style of tournament favors some of the teams that have been around, each other for quite a while, or do you think this is who's ever youngest that can, make it through those those hot summer days in Orlando can? Who do you think is going to be the favored type of team to win this thing?
Oh, I think the teams that know each other well are going to exceed or excel here. I mean, let's face it. I mean, FC Cincinnati has a lot of new players. They were just starting to work together over preseason. They were a little rough coming out of the gate. They've lost all that. They've got a new coach who's going to be coming in. So, you just can't expect them to gel and work like a unit that's played together for years. The teams that had little turnover last year, that have had a consistent roster for a little bit, those are the teams that are going to do the best, because there isn't much build up to this. I mean, if you're talking about a 34 game season, right, over the course of that time, teams will change and evolve, and the best team hopefully comes to the top. But this is really going to be about the teams that know each other the best, that understand what each player is going to do on the field. When our guy slots the ball through and the other guy thinks that it's going to be something different and he's not there, then nothing happens. But the teams that know each other, they're going to have their rhythm from day one.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, Clay, this is maybe let's look at it a different way. Do you think guys like, say, New York Red Bulls, even though they have young guys that have been around that system for a while, do you think they might have a solid impact? Or do you think, say, a group like, let's say, Nashville here, they have a lot of veterans on that team. Do you think it might set up, that these veterans might know how to take care of their bodies better in this heat versus the young guys, tiring themselves out, especially because the Red Bulls, they love to press, man.
Yeah, I think that style of play is going to be hard to get into, because I don't know if it matters so much as veteran versus kind of younger, because I think soccer fitness it takes a while to get there no matter how old you are. And I think, as Rob pointed out, the first Dortmund game I watched in Bundesliga, it was definitely a little rough. It was a little sluggish. But you could tell when they were playing Bayern Munich, the third match day in, it was really Dortmund and Bayern at their full strength, what you expect. And so I think every team, and the unfortunate thing is whether, I think the group stage is probably going to be rough, but then once you get to the knockout rounds is where you're going to see probably the best soccer, which is still exciting, because the best teams will probably just get out of there on its own. I think depth is going to be more of an issue, more of a key, than whether a team is veteran focused or youth focused, because the ability, particularly if MLS ends up using the 5 sub rule that we're seeing in the Bundesliga and Premier League, if you have a deep roster, if you can pull guys off the bench who can give you that much in 30 minutes or 45 minutes, that's going to elevate you over your opposition, I think. And just in case we don't get back to this before the end of this segment, Mr. Garber, I'm still waiting for my residual check for the tournament idea. It seems like we're borrowing a lot of the things I recommended.
Yeah.
I'm happy you're doing it. I'm not selfish. Just, cut me a bit of the piece of pie. That's all I'm asking.
There we go. Direct all emails to feedback@CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. We can also accept PayPal and Venmo, Don Garber. And we promise, wink, wink, we will give like 5% to Clay. So royalties, baby. I'm joking. Now, Rob, what do you think about players that might not show up? Do you think let's say, example, Carlos Vela has a wife that is fairly along labor. Harris Meduna in the same case. Jordan Morris, he's, I believe, asthmatic.
Diabetic.
Diabetic, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, pal. Diabetic. Underlying health conditions. Do you think that MLS really might struggle from the loss of some of these players if they don't show up?
I mean, it's possible from the name brand standpoint. I would say, I mean, it's hard to blame the players, though, the Jordan Morrises and the Medunians and so forth. But I don't know. I mean, for me, I'm just going to be happy to see, a product on the field again. Whether we might be missing this player or that player. I mean, I'm still going to watch. I'm going to watch as much as I can. So that's what I think.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting. I'm interested in, Bill. I don't know if you have a take on this. Is that players might still not feel safe, and they might sit out voluntarily and might not get paid. Do you think there's a chance that we might see that out there, or do you think these guys are just going to tough it out for 6 weeks and get on the field?
Well, I mean, I think every player is going to have to make a personal decision on this, and I hope the league is supportive. I think this pandemic, and I think COVID is, a lot of people have different opinions on how safe they feel. Me versus you versus, anybody out there listening. We're all going to respond to this differently. Some players are going to be anxious to get back and play. Other players, are going to have health concerns or family health concerns, and I hope that the league and the individual clubs are supportive of those players. I will say that, in my mind, we've kind of talked about that this first group stage is going to be kind of rough. Because of the timing of this, it's almost like we're doing preseason again. A lot of teams played like 3 sort of matches in preseason to get back to fitness. And I think that's what we're going to see. These 3 games are going to be kind of like the preseason, get yourself fit, try some things out, kind of relearn things and see how they go. And, I think for players who unfortunately missed that, it would be like missing preseason as well. So it's going to be tough for those players to get back later in the season. And that may cause some players who have hesitancy to come to just tough it out, as you said. I feel bad that they would feel insecure or unsafe and decide to come anyway. But at the same time, I guess that's kind of what's going on with the league, and they have to make that personal decision. So,
yeah, and I think that's personal decisions like that. Whether it's me as a salesperson going into traveling into the work plants, or Clay going back into his place of business, or anybody. There's some really tough decisions out there, and it's not great. But I think what you said there is if the club and the leagues can support, and then if the fans can be understanding, because we can be fickle and mean, and
we can. I think soccer though tends to be. We would say that we're a left-leaning sport, and I think that if you look at the general support for stay at home and things like that within the soccer community, I think it's been pretty high. I think they'll be pretty supportive of their fan base, or the fans will be pretty supportive of their players on this. I think they'll understand. So, but we'll see.
I hope so. All right, guys. Well, I'm sure we'll be discussing this a lot more next week when we hear more about the plans, and we'll try to have some members of the club on the show to outline the steps that they're going to take to help with the transition down to Orlando, as well as the safety. So please stay tuned to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, and we'll have as much as we can, and also with news stories with Jeff and Rob and Clay and the whole board of guys, whole group of guys writing stories. So make sure you check out the website, and we'll have more covering this through the next month. It's that time of the show where we want to give a big shout out and thanks to all of our tremendous supporters. First off, King's Hammer and Tim Bronsel. Also Tom Rose, Matt Adamchick, Mike Hudson, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Kathleen Francis, Matt Imholt, Matthew Long, Joe Kaling, and Tara Mullins. Thank you so much for your support. And to learn more on how you can support CST, head over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. We are going to have a lot of things that we will roll out here in the next week. Hopefully have a big announcement, as well as we are going to be adding to our coverage around this Florida tournament and the upcoming season. So please stay tuned. We have a lot in store for you guys. We had a great staff meeting last Thursday where I didn't make fun of Clay at all, I promise. So I'm joking. Clay's like my little brother. Just let
the little brother he never wanted.
We even look kind of alike too,
Yeah, we got the ginge,
There we go, pal. So thank you all so much for your support, and stay tuned. We have a lot of exciting things coming. So our next topic, we touched on at the beginning of the show. We've been through a lot of I don't want to say we've been a lot of tough times with COVID-19, and we've had a lot of civil issues lately with the police shootings in Louisville and Minneapolis, across the country. And I know I'm not the most eloquent person to speak on this matter, but I do want to give the matter some time. And I wanted to discuss it in the light of how us as a fan base, as a club, can help on these topics of inclusion, diversity, and to raise awareness on all the social injustice and what we can do to, basically form a better community together. So with that, I know Clay, you've been very vocal on this issue, and we've talked a lot about it. And I think you have a great view of this. What are rules? or what are ways where you feel that FC Cincinnati has done well or could do better connecting our community, on this subject?
Yeah, that's a big question. I know I'm not the most qualified, but I hope I can amplify some of the things that I've been learning and hearing from people in the city. I mean, I think soccer, sports in general, I think goes beyond the sport itself. Particularly MLS, I think these clubs are incredibly integrated into the community. I mean, you can't talk to someone from Portland and the Timbers not be like a part of their experience, or Nashville. I mean, it's really kind of up and coming, or the resurgence you see in Atlanta. I'm sure Minnesota United FC. I'm sure. I saw in Madison, Wisconsin. I saw members of Ford Madison. In the protests and in the march is this past weekend. I think FC Cincinnati's in a particular situation where they have a real opportunity to do some real good. They're moving in to a neighborhood with a lot of history, the West End, just to the west of over the Rhine. The inner city of Cincinnati in general has gone through a whole lot. And there are people who've lived here longer than I have who know that more than I do. The West End has gone through a lot of ups and downs, particularly, seems more down than up, I should say. But they are bringing a lot of investment into that neighborhood, and bringing that stadium is going to change it invariably. But FC Cincinnati has a real great opportunity to be a change for good in that neighborhood, to really elevate the residents of that neighborhood, to elevate those businesses, to help those people out, to make sure they benefit from the renewal that neighborhood's going to see. And I know there's a lot of reporting on it when we initially were pulling for those city council votes to make that move happen. And I think some of that coverage has kind of fallen to the backside a little bit, as we've sort of just been more focused on moving MLS and the season and the coach changes and all that stuff. But as that stadium gets finished, and as different businesses move in, or as different things kind of turn around, I think we all should push FC Cincinnati to really do good, and to stand by the community benefits agreement they signed with those residents, to be sure that the people that they are now going to call their neighbors really that the rising tide lifts all those boats. I think they have a great opportunity to do it. I know I'm gonna really I know I'm gonna hold FC Cincinnati to that standard, and I hope they come through.
Yeah, I agree with those comments. And Rob, I don't know what your takes are on this subject, but there has been a lot of angst in that in the West End community, with some groups, some businesses, some tenants, some renters losing their locations. And we've had instances where I would say our fan base has not been as accepting or forgiving, and when they go, after FC Cincinnati for money or restitution in some of these instances, I think there's different ways where we as a fan base can work to support those people better, and not just kind of take a snide comment or snide remark on social media on these things.
Yeah, I think we all have a role to play here. I think that I think the club has done well for themselves over there in that area, and Omar Cummings, I think he's a great ambassador for the club, for soccer, period. I think that's a great addition, and I know that they're proud of what they've done over there, but certainly more can be done, and I just kind of hope it can be like a community conversation.
Kind of like Bill, kind of like Orlando. I think you were involved in some of these discussions with the club. Howard, I don't know if you can speak to Orlando as much, but how are different ways that we can continue to engage as fans or members of the club with the community, and to, as what Clay said, raise all the the tide together. help elevate everybody in our community?
Well, we haven't spoken about Orlando or anything as far as supporters and the club. I think the club doesn't really know anything yet. They're learning the details, and I'm not sure really how we can play in there. But for sure, I mean, I think a lot of what you guys have said makes sense, and I agree with. For me, I think what's important is for the club to recognize that when you look at leadership, when you look at, well, I mean, look at us, we 4 white guys on a podcast talking about this, right? So the club needs to make sure that there are people of decision-making ability, who represent different demographics, right? And let's broaden it even, beyond Black Lives Matter, and just talk about making sure that their diversity in general is part of all discussions. And for me, I look to people, friends of mine, people like Darren, Max, who understand these things. These are things that I can't possibly understand what they go through on a daily basis, and I have to look to them to hope that they can continue to have voices, that they're given voices by the club, that this club reaches out to people like Omar Cummings and gives them a voice, and there needs to be people in these committees, that they need to have that have a voice within the club. And I think if the club continues to do that, if they continue to engage with the West End Council, if the club continues to find other groups of diversity and engages with them directly and doesn't make assumptions, right? Because they've done that on other areas, and I'm not going to get into details, where they've made assumptions and upset communities of people who have felt disenfranchised by the decisions that the club has made. And admit when they make mistakes, and try to continue to include more and more diverse voices into the decision-making process. And I think this club does like to engage with its fans, and it does like to engage with the community. And it just needs to make sure that it's continuing to broaden that base of people that it's talking with, and make sure that it has their opinions and understands their needs and feelings. So,
well said, Bill. Well said. Well, guys, I think this is it's a very difficult time, but I also think it's a time where we're growing and learning more about one another. And as Bill said, I definitely have come from a place of privilege, and I've not done enough. And little by little, I feel like I'm learning on this subject, and I'm definitely not a perfect person. But if you have, if you're a listener to this podcast and you have thoughts or you have questions or you want us to discuss something or address this further, let us know or give us your thoughts. We always want to hear from you. And if you hear or feel something that's not right, and you feel like there's a place where you can share this, let us know. We'd love to discuss it with you and find ways to, find the right party to address the situation. Because, we're not the club, but we have ways to communicate those things. So please let us know. And we'll work to make our city, our community, our club better every day. So please let us know.
What matters is that we use this opportunity to talk about it, because silence is complicity here. And there's a lot of Black communities in Cincinnati that have struggled, and SEC, I think, has a big responsibility, but also the right resources to really help the Black people of Cincinnati. And the fact that we talked about it at all and raised those concerns is important. And it definitely means something. Even if we don't necessarily feel qualified to do so, talking about it does. It's a big part of what we have to do going forward.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Now I put a feeler out there this week on questions, and as I said, I think people are starting to wake up. So we've got quite a bit of listener questions here, and we still have some time in the show if you want to call in at 513-399-KICK, 513-399-KICK. We'd love to take your questions, or put a question in the chat. Love to discuss that with you guys, anything you have tonight. So let's start it off from John B2120 on Twitter. Okay, with the MLS stating that the season will resume, what is the current state of FC Cincinnati? Locadia, coaches arriving, signings, departures, rumors, injuries. So I'm going to let Bill, you can just address one of those many things going on there. Lacadia coaches, signings, rumors, injuries.
Man, I've been away from things for a while, so I don't really know a lot of what's going on, to be honest.
I set you up there.
Yeah. I will say, obviously, the for me, the big story right now is our new coach. I think it's critical for him to see players and talk to players face to face and work with them directly. There's only so much you can do with a team on Microsoft Teams or Skype or Zoom or whatever. I'm not thinking that he's going to be able to be an effective coach over in Holland. I think it's critical that we get him over here. It sounds like it is coming soon. I know that they've kind of had a no-fly from what I understand, so he really couldn't leave. Probably dealing with some visa issues as well. But it sounds like they're anticipating his arrival very, very soon. So that's great news.
And John, speaking of one departure, Ivar Van Dinteren, assistant coach, is no longer with the club. Our very own Boston Razzle Dazzle Brazzle reported that last week, and today was, I believe, confirmed by several news outlets around the city. So, all right, I'm going to give this one to Rob here. This question's from Matthew Long. The summer tournament, is it really just an attempt to gain TV revenue in what is already a lost season? What can you unpack from that?
Certainly the league has lost some revenue, right? And I mean, this is a way to get it back, right? I think you're kind of sweetening the pot by having a CONCACAF bid on the line, right? A CCL bid on the line, and the money. But there's also the issue of, if you're going to at some point play meaningful games, right, then this is kind of almost like a preseason tournament. So, it could be seen as an attempt to gain revenue, but I do think that, good can't come out of it if you look at the product on the field, just trying to get back into the swing of things.
Well, the rumor was, and this was, I believe, the 5-team or five game edition of the tournament before they pared it down a little bit, that it was going to cost each owner about $2 million to put this thing on. So I'm not sure even if TV revenue could have supplanted that or not, but I definitely think on that front, giving an olive branch out to ESPN, knowing that we're going to have to renegotiate our TV contract in a couple of years, could be a big deal. So, Matt, thank you very much for the question. It's a great question.
Can I weigh in?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Obviously money is a huge part of any business, and MLS is a business. So yeah, sure, they want money. Whether they can actually pull it off or not, I don't know. But I think I'm going to throw another idea out there. I think that we started the season off. We got 2 games in. Mm-hmm. People were just starting to get kind of excited and going, and we stopped, right? And we've been at a halt for 3 months. 3 months, right? Fans have disengaged. We've seen that on our own reporting, right? We've seen, a lack of downloads and other things because people have just kind of put the season on hold and they're waiting. And a lot of people have felt like maybe the season was never going to happen at all. Some have certainly believed there's never going to be a game with fans at it, which we may address later. But, my thing is that I think the actual league decided they needed something exciting to kick this off, right? And people get excited about the playoffs. They like the idea of a winner. They like the idea of hoisting a trophy. They like that there is a decisive victory at the end. And this pushes that playoff into the beginning of the season so that hopefully they can re-engage fans really early. There'll be 3 rough games, which as we keep saying are going to seem probably more like preseason scrimmages, just because teams are out of shape and they've kind of lost some of their edge and have some rust they need to dust off, and they're not going to get much time to get going. And I think that this will make those 3 games seem valuable, right? Because they're part of group stage. So even though if they're a little rough to watch, fans are going to be engaged because they want to know if their team moves on. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be the elimination rounds, and then there's going to be a trophy. And I think, in the end, that this is all about re-engaging fans.
Yeah. I agree with that, and there's an opportunity here with that we might be the first, I would say, team sport that would play. Because I believe NHL and the NBA are slating a little bit after. NHL might be back right about the same time.
I know
think
NBA is late July,
Mhm.
so we'll be a few weeks before them if it all goes to plan.
Mhm.
But I think Bill's right. I talked about this in the article. Everyone loves knockout soccer. It's fun. Champions League knockouts, the World Cup knockouts. Those are the things that I remember most as a fan, right? So he's right. I think, yeah, of course they want to give ESPN reason to, throw them a bone in 2022. But yeah, it's to get excitement because people love playoffs.
Do we know if, one thing I saw a while ago, and I don't know if this is still valid or still truth, but I saw that SeaWorld and Universal were planning to open, if not already, very soon. But it looked like Disney was postponing their opening date for quite a while, later into the summer or at the end of the summer. So, I wonder if MLS has any influence on that, if their decision to engage with these teams and have them play at the Disney soccer global, whatever, I don't know what their official title is there, but they've got a fancy title.
Yeah, Wide World Sports Complex.
Yeah, I mean, and they do stuff there, and it's a pretty big deal for young kids every year to go down there. But I wonder if there's even we've kind of forced by, at the time when it was made, nobody knew that, parks might be opening. So Disney might've said, heck yeah, we'd love the revenue. Now they might be saying, oh crap, we can't open because we've, promised safety to all these players. And, what is that costing us? So this could be, as Brian said, $2 million for each owner. It might be worse at this point because Disney might be saying, well, we're willing to, stay closed, but it's going to cost you because now we had an option to open our park. Who knows? Again, I don't know any truth to any of that, but yeah, certainly things are changing.
I guarantee you there's somebody listening to this being like, they're opening this day.
Probably.
Disney heads out there. According to USA Today, Disney Resort hotels open on June 22nd with the return of Walt Disney World on July 11th. So, hey.
So I think that's during when we would be there.
First week.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So that's changed. I think they had originally, when I last heard that, I think they were end of July or even later. So good.
It does sound phased, and it sounds like they'll put the players in a particular resort, so that will help.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They'll isolate them. I'm sure I'm sure a lot of people working on that. So.
Yeah, I'm going to take this as a comment versus a question. And I'm going to actually throw this on either Boston or Ken Hedger because they're really good at this stuff. From Brian Malone, tournament, obviously, how would it work? CST needs a bracket pool. I like this idea, Brian. Very nice. Bracket pool. So, and Subs, no, NASCAR is not a team sport. Definitely not. They don't say all the team members' names when they win a title. Sorry, buddy. From Tina on Facebook. Oh, there he is. Hi, buddy.
Hello. And
I love you. I love NASCAR. I know several people that are on the pit crew for Richard Childress Racing. They are great people, and they work their tails off. Love them. From Tina on Facebook. Rob, what's with the Bengals t-shirt? Looking ahead? All you need to say is Joe Burrow. That's all you need to say. I got my jersey this week. Super excited.
Well, this was the shirt I was wearing today, and when I woke up this morning, I hadn't and put the shirt on. I didn't realize I was going to be on the show. But I asked Subs if he wanted me to change. Bill's got his spiffy polo on, and he said, "No, don't change." Okay, so here we are.
Speaking of awesome shirts, I got my new Cincy shirt, their OTR edition. I got the Be Better to Each Other. You can see that all on TV if you're listening, watching, whatever. Be better to each other. Love that Cincy shirts. Great messages on their newest line of clothing. So go check them out.
And for those on the podcast, just ignore the last 5 minutes.
It looks good. All right. Let's see. We're going to delete that one. Let's look. Eric Turner. What players would you add to the roster that are going to move from the Chinese Super League? Oh, that's a tough question. What do you guys think about FC Cincinnati adding a second team? Clay, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to happen soon?
I don't know how soon it will happen, but it's very clear, I think, from Nijkamp and all involved, that is their goal. That is their dream. I mean, Nijkamp has talked about wanting to sort of create sort of the Dutch total football, as in not just like on the field, but off it, and how they're going to develop that. I believe it's either the U19 or the U21 academy team, and that's a pretty clear pipeline to MLS. I think they're trying to, we're a few years behind, but I think they're trying to create that FC Dallas kind of vibe where you see development of these players. And can you imagine what's going to, like, if we ever get to a game where the first time an academy player from Cincinnati walks onto the field at the Weston Stadium? That's going to be incredible. And I think they want to create that sense. And I think a USL side like a New York Red Bulls 2 or something like that fits right into that. You're able to give them more competitive games while, not having to make them jump from academy to MLS right away. So I don't know when that would be. I don't know if Nijkamp's even put that in a 5-year plan specifically. But I think it's definitely something they want to do, and I'm excited for it.
Now, we've had this discussion, Bill. Do you think FC Cincinnati is more likely to, let's say, align with a team, say like, Richmond Kickers or somebody like an independent club like that, or do you think they're more likely to do like a team in Lexington or another team in Cincinnati?
I don't think we'll do another team in Cincinnati. I think in general, we haven't seen that that's the most successful model. I mean, even the Red Bulls 2, which we view as a wonderful pipeline and training situation, the actual performance of the fan base, that's maybe not the right way to put it, the turnout of the fan base for that 2 team is miserable, right? And they're like one of the better teams in the league. But the market just, it's limited on what it's going to go to. And most people will choose the higher product rather than the lower product. So I think, you want a market outside. I think it's going to come down to cost and time at this point. I think ideally the club probably had a vision of having, like a Lexington or a Dayton, right? I think their vision would be to have more control, to pick a market really close by, and to be able to move players back and forth more easily by having, a 1.5 to 2 hour commute if needed. I think that, especially with everything this year, obviously there's going to be a huge revenue hit. There's going to be a delay, obviously, because they have not been able to work on this kind of stuff, not knowing, what's going on. So I'm guessing that we could see next year them partnering with a team. Maybe you're going to see a North Carolina or Indy or somebody like that they can that they have worked with, right? We've seen players going back and forth to both those teams. So I could see a partnership temporarily, and then following that, I think we're gonna see a new USL team, and probably not championship. Probably like what is it? League One is the next one down. That seems to be kind of the expected choice nowadays. So
now, Clay, this has been a topic this week on social media. Mario Balotelli from Amit on Facebook. Would Mario Balotelli coming to FC Cincinnati or MLS be a good idea since he has now left Serie A?
It'd be a great idea. Serie A never deserved him. Seriously, one of the most flamboyant, confident, exciting black players in the world, and he ends up in one of the most racist European leagues there is. And so, yeah, and I said it. I've joked many a time to burn Serie A to the ground. That's very inflammatory. I understand, but they have more instances than we see everywhere else. And players like Mario Balotelli, I always feel really bad when I see those instances pop up. I mean, it happens in England and Germany and other places too, but it feels like Italy is really rife with it. So I think he's got an incredible personality for the sport. I mean, we saw how successful Zlatan is. I'm not saying they're necessarily the same player, but you can see what that type of player, with that type of personality, what he can do in the league. I don't know if he'll end up at FC Cincinnati. I don't know if our finances could handle a move like that. I haven't looked into the details of it, but whether it's Miami or the Galaxy or LAFC or New York City, wherever it ends up going, I think he could be nothing but a boost to the league. I still think he's a little older now, but I still think he has plenty of talent. And like I said, that personality is that's the kind of thing you want to put on billboards. And so I think MLS would love to have him.
I personally don't think he'd like to be in Cincinnati, but LA, Miami, I think he could be. I think he could be all right, and I do think I think our fan base would be very friendly to him. I just don't know if he. I don't know if personally, yeah, was he with Man City playing when he had that? He tried to like spin back or something like that. So I'm more worried about his respect to the competition or his thoughts on the competition.
Yeah, that's true. But I think MLS fans would love it.
Oh, I'd be all for it. Tina Harris, has anyone heard any news on the USL Championship proceeding? So it came out today that I believe each team was trying to cut somewhere about $20,000 off of their salary budgets. That's just a rumor or I think that was a number Jeff Reuter put out today. But the league has approved a $5.5 million safety package to all the clubs to help them get through this time. But we were discussing this offline, and Bill, you might be able to speak to it a little bit. They are going to be playing, and they're going to be playing in market, apparently with fans.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's everywhere. Obviously, every state has different rules and regulations, and they're going to have to honor those. But we've already seen several USL teams reach out to fans even and start surveys asking questions. And I think I can't remember where it was. Was it down in Texas? Where one survey came out that like 62% of fans were interested in returning to games. And I think that was right on the cusp of that area or that region, talking about public sports in that way, being allowed to have like 50% capacity of their stadium and that kind of stuff. So it sounds like, especially USL where attendance is lower, that becomes much easier. If you're playing in a 20,000 seat stadium and you're drawing 5,000 to 6,000 people a game, basically you just say, come on, and you're good to go. So, it'll be a little tougher in Nippert where, we can seat 35 and, we draw, let's say 25 on a regular basis. So you can't say 50% capacity. I don't know. That's a whole different issue for FC Cincinnati to deal with if we would get to that point. But yeah, it sounds like the USL, at least in certain areas, already starting to play some games and talking about fans coming back, and should be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
I was interested in this, and I guess this is a question from Brian Bucknuts. I love that. What would you put the odds that FC Cincinnati plays at least one home match with some fans in attendance this season? I'm going to answer this, and then I can let one of you guys do it. I personally think it's 100%. I think it's going to happen. The biggest question mark in this, and this is where maybe it's 98%, is UC going to be open and allowing events? So would we have to look for somewhere else to play? Paul Brown Stadium? I don't know. Clay?
Milford training.
Milford? Yeah, exactly, Bill.
The issue with me for Milford is camera, right? We spent a lot of money to revamp Nippert to give it the high quality ESPN quality video and audio, and that would be sacrificed dramatically in Milford, but they'd have control over the environment. So it'd be interesting. Anyway, I'll let Clay go on because I cut him off. So go ahead, Clay.
No. That was good to add. I don't know how anyone could be 100% confident. I understand confidence. I understand that there's definitely plans you can put in place to, funnel fans in selectively, separate them out throughout the stadium. But we have no idea how this pandemic is going to evolve. I hope that we can have fans by October and that we all feel safe to do so. But we could still see spikes. I mean, this thing could still change dramatically in front of us. There's still a lot we don't know. And I also have to wonder if, say, 10, 15% capacity, whatever the number is, how does the club determine who gets to go?
That's a mess.
Yeah.
Season ticket holders
Are you going to go by the people who bought tickets first And then you start to get into a whole lot. I don't even know how they would do it. And I think any potential plan would upset a lot of people. So it might just be best to kind of write off a fan attendance, just make it equitable.
Man, I'll take 5 games. I don't care. If they say 5 games, they say they have 10 home games and I get 5, I'm cool with it. Rob, I know you had a thought on a lower percent there.
I did. I gave a much lower percentage when we were talking about this beforehand. I've since come up a little bit, but it's still lower than you guys. I'm going to say 33%.
Okay.
That's higher than I'd say.
85.
Okay. Well, guys, I do appreciate all your questions. We're going to have one more here, but thank you to Liverpool Superior to Man U, Steve Buckeridge, as well as Captain Thresher. I couldn't say all your questions, but thank you guys for writing in, and we'll try the best we can to get to some of these. But from our best friend out there, we call him Head of Lettuce. Yes, that guy, Head of Lettuce. Send us a question. I dig it. His question was 3 players leave, 3 players come in. Who do you want to see? Just for sake of time, we'll just say 1 player. Each of you guys pick 1 player comes in, 1 player leaves. Who would you like to see, knowing it's potential that we might not have a transfer window till September? So I'll let Clay go first here.
Oh, great. As I was thinking.
I mean, I can go first if you want me to. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. I have
Isn't
a few
the
in mind
out
that I want to
really
make sure I pick the
obvious?
right one.
I'm pretty sure the 1 player out is pretty
Go for
obvious here. Darren Maddox.
Oh, I see what he did. I see what you did here. Throw me under the bus. Okay, that's fine. I would say Greg Garza, and I love the guy very much. I just think a lot of it is he's a little older. You don't know about his health concerns. Seriously, I love him. I want him to stay. But if I'm thinking of moving someone out, I think that's you want to. There's a lot of players with a lot more, I think, upside at the moment.
Okay. Bill Wolf.
Wow, we're gonna make somebody unhappy. I think right now the story is going to be about depth. I do think that we're going to do some sort of a season. I think it's going to be massively compressed, and we're going to be playing a lot of games in a very short period of time. And I think we can't afford to have a part of the roster that can't rotate. I mean, we almost need to have 2 squads, right? A and B, and they're both equal.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like right now where we are still not as strong as we need to be is in the wing position. I think we brought in a couple really good wingers, but I think some of the wingers that we kept behind are good for, coming off the bench or, filling in a little bit, but rely on them for a game a week, maybe. I don't think we're there. We saw that last year. I would pick Mane.
Okay. And I think Soup said this online. Is Maddox even a part of the team anymore?
I don't think so.
I didn't think he was anymore.
I thought we bought out his contract.
Yeah, I thought he was
we
gone.
couldn't have bought him. No.
That's not official, I don't think. I think
He's not listed on our website.
He's
so.
away from the club, but he's not been bought out, is my understanding.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's like a suspension.
Yep.
Something
Kind
like
of,
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Rob?
Oh, well, given that conversation there, then I'll take the out, and that's Maddox.
All right, that's all right.
Today.
And bring in?
I haven't been up on the rumor mill, but there is one name I see here in our rundown that I know that has gained a little bit of attention, and I'll go with Mario Götze.
Götze, yeah, I love it. I love it. Don't think it's gonna happen, but I love it. Absolutely love it. All right, so I'm gonna blow your minds here, boys, because we're gonna get rid of an international spot. So let's see, who could we get rid of? Sayonara, Titan.
That's what I should have picked.
Bye-bye. And we're gonna bring in an American, Ethan Horvath, baby, and he's gonna free up an international spot. Then we go bring in Götze, and then we all good. We all good. Oh, nobody cares about that?
No, I mean, sure. Let's the guy who peaked 6 years ago. We can add him to the team.
Dude's
That
like
sounds great.
25.
He's 27.
Whatever.
27 isn't a young spring
No, he's
chicken
not.
in
He's
soccer.
25. He's 24. 24. 25, 24.
Who, Goetze?
No, Ethan Horvath. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm talking about Goetze. I'm not talking about Horvath.
Oh, okay.
That's the part of that I was disagreeing with. Horvath would probably be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, you and I, we're good on the goalkeeper. It's the
way to end the show on a high note. Love it. Love it. Guys, I love it. I'm glad to talk to y'all. Bill Wolf, so happy to have you back, pal. Been missing you. Gonna have to hang out soon and get a drink before the next FC Cincinnati match. So glad to talk to you, pal. Guys, let's get into our final thoughts here before we end tonight's show. If you have any parting words you'd like to leave the FC Cincinnati faithful with, so I'm going to kick it off with you, Clay. Youngest man on the totem pole goes first, pal.
There we go. I think 2020 continues to throw really what seem like insurmountable obstacles at us. But I think what I have tried to take away from the past week, or almost kind of like 12 days almost, is, we don't, things are coming back. We're seeing, these really good plans, I think, being put forward for the NBA and for MLS, the Premier League and all this stuff. But not only that, seeing the amount of people, the thousands upon thousands who've gone out to raise their voices for change in the world, not just in Cincinnati, but in New Zealand and in Brussels and in Bristol, England. I mean, that should be inspiring and it should be hopeful. People are, protesting against some pretty awful stuff, but we are still able to see that people are raising their voices for Black lives everywhere. I think that's incredible stuff. So not only do I think we have that to be hopeful about, but we're also able to also find the distractions that kind of relieve the stress and the burden of that change at the same time. So take solace in the things that are returning to normal, but at the same time take solace in the fact that people are raising their voices to change the things that should no longer be the normal. And I think that's a good place to be right now.
Very well said, pal. We're going to go to Editor-in-Chief Rob Pierce. Rob?
Well, in 2019, I would have an anecdote or something like that for my final thought. But this time around, I think I'll just keep it short and sweet. Brian, you showed your shirt there that you have on, and I think that slogan is my final thought, and that is just to be better to each other.
I love it. Love this shirt. Love that thought. Definitely more that could be said. Kicking it over to you, Bill the Wolfman.
Just got to always wait just that little bit of time to get the howl in there. It's been a rough year for me. It's been a rough year for a lot of people. I have a lot of friends, not specifically this year, but just over time that I've talked to who talk about the healing qualities of soccer, of friendship, of companionship, of camaraderie. I think we've been missing this. I think during some of these tough moments that we've been going through as a community, as a world, we need to come together more and more. I think the opportunity is there now that soccer is beginning again. I'm looking forward to re-embracing my soccer family, sharing some joys and probably some tears, and getting back into the swing of things and really just finding things to celebrate and to spend time with the friends and the people that I call family. So welcome back. I'm excited and I can't wait for the next first kick.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting for all that. So very excited to be all back with you guys and have some drinks and hanging out with our buddies for FC Cincinnati. My final thoughts. I think there's going to be some very exciting things happening for FC Cincinnati and focusing more on the side of sport. I'm just very happy to have something I love that's coming back, and we kind of have a date on our horizon where we can circle and get ready for. So hopefully nothing crazy happens in the next couple weeks that would change that, but hopefully we can keep being safe and get back and have FC Cincinnati and hopefully one day be back in the Bailey one time, hopefully in Nippert before we leave to that beautiful West End Stadium. That graphic today that we saw with the LED lights was truly awesome. So very exciting there. So can't wait to be back there and can't wait to keep growing this Cincinnati Soccer Talk with all y'all. So guys, thank you so much. Stay tuned. We have a lot of new content coming out. The guys from March to Match Day will be back. We'll see. Maybe we fire Boston. We never know. Maybe he just keeps playing Animal Crossing. I don't know. So
He's taking PTO next week.
He's on PTO this week.
Isn't he always on PTO?
He's definitely on PTO this week. I know that. So to get the hookups. The guy travels, man. He's got all the hookups, the Marriott rewards points, all that cool stuff. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for staying with us tonight. I actually thought it was going to be a short show, went a little bit long here. So thank you for tuning in and listening to me ramble on with these three great gentlemen. So for Rob, Clay, Bill, this is Brian Weigel signing off, and we are on to bigger and brighter things with FC Cincinnati. Talk to you next week.